Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's topic is time management for the new year here. Before we get started, just a couple of those normal items to take care of. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those into the question box in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar on our blog. The link for that will be shown at the end as well. And if you would like a PDF copy of the presentation, there will be a link to download that on that same post as the recording. If your question does not get answered today, please feel free to email our support inbox, which again will be shown at the end as well. Okay, let's talk about time. Time, how it affects our stress levels and our health, and hopefully how to manage it a little better after today to help improve some of that stress. Many of us perceive to be lacking time, and many actually are, but hopefully after today you can find some ways to optimize your time and make some small changes to add more to your life. Let's start with ways that time or lack thereof can affect our stress and in turn our health. I'm confident that most of you realize that when you don't feel like you have enough time in the day, that it's going to stress you out, right? When you're rushing around trying to get things done, that typical stress response comes out. Our heart rate increases. We start to breathe shallower and faster, right? We get all sorts of other physical symptoms as well. Some common symptoms of stress that can come along with feeling too stretched for time include irritability, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness, loss of sleep, headaches, and other physical symptoms, and even possibly depression. Now, if you're trying to get a lot of stuff done and have a big to-do list that seems to go on and on, these symptoms that I just said are not going to help you be more efficient, right? Not at all. Procrastinators, raise your hands too. When it comes to time management, we are the worst. And then how do you feel when you had a timeline that now all of a sudden is up and you haven't done what you wanted to do? Stress, 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 right? Here's another thing to think about. Even if your main stressor is not lack of time or that perceived lack of time and stress and time management issues, you can still help your overall stress levels, no matter where they come from, by improving your time management even a little bit. How great is that? There are some studies out there to support this. A study published in the Journal of Educational Psychology found that students who felt that they used their time wisely had higher satisfaction with their work and their lives. They also reported less tension when they felt they had better control over their time. A study in Work and Stress, an International Journal of Work, Health, and Organizations, found that adults who had a job and that also attended night classes had the same results. Using time management techniques lowered their anxiety levels overall. Certainly worth a try, right? Okay, so let's get right into tips today. How you can manage your time and hopefully find more of it throughout your day and your week. First, and this should come as no surprise if you've ever watched a health check webinar before, but you should start with tracking. Just like your eating and exercise, stress management, and sleep habits, if you don't know what you're doing now, how are you supposed to know what you can change? Do a time audit. Keep track of some normal days for a week or so to get a good feel of the average time you're spending on specific areas. You can even download an app to help this. A couple examples, and there's millions out there, but Clockify, Toggle, Rescue Timer, and Calendar are some specific apps to track your time. Some phones and apps on your phones will automatically monitor what you do on your devices, which is really nice too. Knowledge and awareness are going to be our most valuable assets when it comes to improving our time management. Again, same thing with everything. If we don't know what we're doing now and how we're spending our time, how are we supposed to improve upon it? And it may seem daunting, but again, like any other tracking, once you get a good feel of what you're doing and you make those changes, you don't have to do it forever, but you need to get a feel for what you're doing with your time right now. So do that time audit first. And then once you figure out what you're spending your time on, you need to analyze that data and then make a plan, right? Depending on what you found when you did your time audit, you can start to set some goals to make yourself more efficient. Are there tasks that took way longer than they should have because you got distracted in the middle of it by something else? Do you need to give more time to another area? Did you spend 45 minutes on social media that could be cut down to maybe 15? The majority of time when people do a time audit, they find that if they make some small changes and structure their day even a little better, they can find time for everything. Now, be realistic though when you're setting your goals. If you spend 2 hours after supper every evening watching TV, it's probably not going to be realistic to say you won't watch any TV tomorrow, right? Like any goal, we need to set small goals and work towards those long term ones. So be realistic when you're setting those initial goals to create more time. And then once you have those goals figured out, plan. Make a schedule for one day, a couple days, a week, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever is realistic in your world and your lifestyle. Some of you will be able to plan many days in advance because your days are fairly similar, right? Some of you may only be able to plan one day in advance, and that's okay. Like I said, do what works best in your life. Again, there are many tools that can help you plan your day. Your phone or email will probably have some sort of calendar on it. Google Calendar, Apple Calendar are great options depending on what kind of devices that you use. Outlook Calendar is what I use at work, and I couldn't live without it. If you are a paper and pen type of person, there are millions of wonderful physical planners out there for you as well. That goes for the tracking too. If you just write down things on a piece of paper, 100% fine. As long as you do what you're comfortable with, you can plan, you can track, you can do anything however you want to do it. Now, the key to using calendars effectively is taking the time to actually use them consistently and follow them as much as you can. There are going to be things that pop up, right? Life, it pops up. But you can also plan for changes and have flexibility in your schedule as well. For example, if your goal is to work out 3 days a week, have those first options set up. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday is what you want to shoot for. Now, if something comes up and you can't go on Wednesday, are there other times to get in a quick workout, even if it's not the same workout? Is there another time that you can sneak something in? Have those backup times loosely mapped out as well so you can have that flexibility in your schedule. Knowing yourself and your typical energy levels is important as well. Do you usually take a little bit to get that focus back after lunch? Probably not a good time to schedule important tasks, right? Having buffer times built in between tasks is another strategy that can help your overall day. If you think something could possibly take a little longer, but you're not entirely sure, feel free to add in some non-scheduled time after that just in case. Then what you can do is have another small task or to-do item that isn't necessarily as urgent in that time frame. So if you have the time, great, you're going to use it efficiently. But if that other task goes over and you can't do it, then it can just be pushed to another day. So one of those non-urgent tasks in that time. Now, a complementary item to the calendar is those to-do lists. Having that master list for the day, along with when you plan to do it with that calendar, can help you dial in even more to that schedule. And then once you have that to-do list for the day, then you need to prioritize those tasks, right? Put the time-sensitive or most important tasks first, then those that are less urgent after that. Look at your day and you determine what works best when. A good rule of thumb also is to take the final 15 to 30 minutes or however much you need, maybe it's less than that, take those final minutes of your day to see what you accomplished, what you did get done, maybe something did get pushed, and then plan that out for the next day or the next couple days if possible. Doing this will help you continue to see how you're doing with that time throughout the day, what you're getting accomplished, and then it's also going to save time the next day, right? Because you already have your schedule laid out for you. Some people will break up their goals into weekly goals and then daily action items to achieve that overall weekly goal, which I think is fantastic. Again, the smaller you can break down the goals, the easier it's going to be to accomplish them. Now, there's no wrong way to create your list. Just do what works best for you. And this is going to involve some trial and error as well, right? Time management is like any other skill. It's going to take practice to do it well. So don't get discouraged if you feel some stress after you've started this. It will get easier, just like any other goal that you're working on. Now, you can use your calendars for your to-do list. Many of them have spots for that, which is fantastic. But there's also specific apps out there dedicated specifically to task managers, checklists, and to-do lists as well. Apps like Remember the Milk. Yes, that's actually what it's called, and I love that name so much. But yeah, Remember the Milk is an app. Trello, that's actually our health coaching team uses that for some of our coaching tasks here. Google Tasks, those are just a few of the many options out there. Again, checklists or write it down on paper, like I said. You can set reminders on some of these apps, have it sync up with some of those other calendars, and then have push notifications, those types of things. But again, if you're a paper and pen person, a lot of times there's not much that's more satisfying than physically checking something off your list, right? I know some of you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's talk about some other ways to add time in your life. I'm going to share some tips from the author James Clear. James wrote the New York Times best-selling book Atomic Habits. I'd recommend checking that out too if you have a chance. So, first tip on time management that he has is eliminating half work. Half work refers to working, but also trying to balance many tasks at once instead of stopping to focus on one task and doing it with all of your energy. An example he gives is if you're writing a report and then you just stop randomly to check your social media for no reason, right? I catch myself doing this quite a bit. And it doesn't help when your phone prompts you with all that vibrating and push notifications too, right? So the point of this is that when you're doing half work, it typically can take up to twice as long to complete that main task, and a lot of time the quality may not be as high either. So closing your email, turning off your phone, or even just putting it across the room. There's even computer apps out there. There's app for everything, right? Computer apps that block websites that may distract you, that you find that you're going to, that type of thing. Those are just a few ways to help lower those outside distractions and focus on that task at hand so you're not doing that half work. Now, I know focusing on one thing at a time is not always realistic. Things are going to come up. As always, it's life. Kids who need something right now, mom or dad, or a coworker who acts like that for that matter. But if we start to become more mindful of some of the distractions that we can limit and can get rid of, a lot of times we can complete those main tasks a lot quicker, and that's going to add time to our day. That's the goal of time management, right? Adding that time. So if you can be more efficient with what you have, that's going to add that time. Another tip James Clear talks about is doing the most important things first. I touched on that a little bit with that task, having those more bigger priority tasks listed first. But just think about it. When you get to work in the morning or when you're all energized and ready to go on a Saturday after you've had a great night's sleep, think about how you're feeling. Now, think about how you feel around 2 or 3 or 4 in the afternoon at work or that same Saturday afternoon after a busy day. Some of you will say, hey, I'm still going strong. If that's the case, then that is fantastic. But for some of us, as the day goes on, the schedule can get more and more draining, right? That willpower can go down, and we end up possibly putting off that important task that we didn't get done, that important workout, that important relaxation time, whatever it is, we end up putting it off and maybe not completing it at all. Or we have some other, what we perceive more important things or tasks that do come up. Now, this becomes even more stressful, again, if you left those most important tasks for later in the day. A side note with this is from another author, Mark Twain. He has a great quote on getting the important tasks done first. He says, if it's your job to eat the frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. Now, those frogs are those most important tasks of the day, or the ones that you kind of dread, but you know that they need to get done, right? These are the ones you should focus on first if possible. That way, if something pops up as the day goes on, you have that most important thing done already, and that stress response may be just a little bit less because those other things can be scheduled for another day if something does pop up. Another reason to do those important things first, if you can, again, I know it's not always possible, but if you can, because they can be a huge distraction to you while you're doing those other tasks that aren't quite as important, especially if it's something that you're not super excited to complete, right? Similar to that half work I talked about, having that big task weighing on your mind can affect the quality of other tasks you're trying to focus on and make those take longer. And then again, we get into that vicious cycle. Now, again, this doesn't always work with everyone's schedule. If you have meetings or if you're like our health coaching team, for example, you have scheduled calls that you can't just shift around. You can't always just simply do those important tasks right away. But going back to that planning, if you plan ahead, you can find that time in your day somewhere. Ideally, again, it would be earlier in the day. But if you can't, find that plan, find that time in your day, put it on your calendar, set yourself reminders, get it done as soon as you're able. It's not about having a schedule that you can control 100% of the time, because that's not realistic. It's about working with what you have and making it work. And part of making it work is having awareness of what your day and week looks like so you can plan accordingly, right? Again, going back to audit your schedule, see what you can tweak, control it as much as you can, but knowing that you're not going to control 100% of it, but you can do the best that you can. Okay, last James Clear tip here. Reduce the scope, but stick to the schedule. I really enjoy this tip. It goes along with a different piece of advice that James has that is set a schedule, not a deadline. This means instead of saying, I'm going to lose 40 pounds by December 31st, my goal instead is to follow a schedule of healthy habits that lead me towards weight loss. You don't set a deadline, you set a scope or schedule, excuse me. Your success is measured by how consistently you follow the schedule and those small goals you achieve each week, which ultimately leads to big success. That's a fantastic mindset to have when you're setting goals. So now let's apply it to time management. Let's say you scheduled to go for a 30-minute walk after work. Things kept coming up and you ended up getting out of work late and now you only have 10 minutes for that walk. Do you still go for that 10 minutes? Yes is the answer to that question. I know a lot of us say no in the moment, but yes is absolutely the answer to that question. This applies to other things as well. If you have time set aside to work on a project, but that time got cut in half for whatever reason, that's still more of that project that's done if you decided it wasn't worth it because you don't have as much time as you thought you'd have, right? There's multiple benefits to reducing the scope and not the schedule. Even if you can get a small percentage of a task done, again, you're still that much closer. It's not an all or nothing thing here. We can get some of it done. But also, you're creating those mental connections and you're creating habits in your head of working on things or doing that workout in that time frame. You don't cut into the next task that you had planned, so the rest of your day is not affected, but you still accomplish something. This helps your day still stay efficient and also helps you build those lifetime habits and motivation because you're still working towards things. So keep that in mind if your time starts to get tweaked a little bit throughout the day. It's all about adaptation. Okay, a few more hacks here to get some time back. One begins with a simple question. Is this what I want or need to be doing right now? As you go through your day, stop and ask yourself this question. As you begin tracking your time, you're probably going to find more times you say no to this than yes. But as you get a handle on planning and scheduling your week, hopefully yes will be the more frequent answer. But this is a great just mantra to have throughout your day to kind of rein it in to say, okay, am I using my time efficiently? Do I want or need to be doing this right now? Sometimes it's yes, even if it's something that you know is not as efficient, and that's fine. But sometimes it can help bring yourself back in and get you back focused on the more important task at hand so you can save some of your time later. Next tip, combine tasks. Now, I just talked about not getting distracted and doing half work a few minutes ago, right? I'm not contradicting myself. This tip refers to those tasks that don't necessarily require your full attention. I do this when at home a lot, and I've found it's one of the most useful for me. If your kids are working on homework, you don't need to be just sitting there waiting for them to ask you a question. Do a workout while they're working. Then you can have a quick breather if they do have a question. That applies to any household chore. It doesn't have to be exercising. And like while supper's cooking, get the laundry done. Listen to that podcast you've wanted to listen to for a long time during your commute at work or during your walk at lunch. There are millions of examples to combining tasks if you can get creative. Again, as you go through your time audit, hopefully you'll find some that you can do at the same time that still benefits you overall, and you're getting those things in that you want to do, that you like to do, and that you have to do. That's the combo, right? We got to do all of those things for ourselves. Okay, next tip. If you are really overwhelmed by your schedule and you're just not finding those ways to add more time after you do all these other tips that I've said, then you may have to utilize a scary word, and that is no. I know it's very hard to say. But again, if you can't find any time in your day at all, my guess is that you may be doing too much. Now, delegating tasks to someone else is a really good idea if it's possible. These can be chores for your kids or your spouse or significant other, whatever it may be at home. Delegation at work is hopefully an option for you as well. And again, we all want to do it all, right? But at some point, if you're at that point where you're not finding any time for you or any time for the other things that you like to do or want to do, it's time to switch things around a little bit, right? And then along with that, the last tip for this page, schedule time for nothing. Just like it's important to have a scheduled time for work, exercise, family, all of those things, scheduling time for nothing is just as important. Having 10 minutes of time just to sit can be a really powerful way to energize your mind and your body. So something to think about too. We all want time for nothing. Hopefully you'll be able to find some more times for that, and then that nothing will turn into really good time for you for some self-care as well. Okay, I want to revisit our procrastinators out there for a few specific tips for you. Hopefully it'll work, tips will work for everybody, but specifically for those procrastinators, Forbes actually had some really great tips on how those that tend to push off tasks can get themselves back on track. So I'll share a few of those here. The first one is simply picking one thing to do. A lot of times we procrastinate because we don't know where to start, right? There's so much there. If you want to clean your entire house, you have to start somewhere. And it doesn't really matter, right? As long as you start, but we get overwhelmed by it. So pick one thing, one room, one closet, one task. Again, not necessarily the cleaning thing, but any task, whatever it is, commit to it and just start. Just go. A way to get started too, give yourself 5 minutes to do something. Find some action that you can take in 5 minutes to help move towards the completion of something. Literally, set a timer for 5 minutes. Research shows that once you actually physically start something, you're going to be more likely to finish it. This is why you may have had advice given to you on a coaching call of simply getting on your treadmill for 5 minutes to start to create a habit, right? Again, you're getting that connection started in your brain that eventually becomes a habit. And same thing with time management. If it's a task that you started, it tends to stick in your memory as a motivator to complete. So again, we're becoming more efficient when we create those good habits in our brain. So get that timer out, find something to do for 5 minutes. It can make all the difference in the world. I think we get a little bit overwhelmed when we think, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it all now. And that's, again, why we procrastinate, right? We get overwhelmed by things. 5 minutes and you're going to get yourself started. Next tip from Forbes, do a power hour. So I started with 5 minutes. Now we're going to go up to an hour. So see if you can find a time that you won't have distractions, or again, making those distractions as little as humanly possible, a time that you tend to have good energy levels, and get to it. Do something for 20 minutes, take a quick break for a minute or two, and keep it going for an hour. You'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in an hour. Again, considering you started with 5 minutes tasks in that last tip, right? And then another thing to add to this, give that hour a soundtrack. Pick a song that you love, that pumps you up. Put it on when you're powering through, cleaning your house, doing that workout, getting a work task done. Make it a positive experience by getting yourself motivated at the beginning. It sounds corny, but man, if we can get ourselves pumped up, music is so powerful. So figure out what you can do to motivate yourself to get something started. Okay, next tip for procrastinators, ask yourself why. This one gets a little bit deeper, but it can be powerful when it comes to figuring out why you aren't getting something done. Why are you avoiding this specific task? Is there something that makes you a bit intimidated by it? Sometimes it's not that deep, and it's just something that you don't want to do, right? Clean the toilet, something like that. But sometimes there's a little more to this story. So it's just something to think about as you work through your procrastination issues. Something that goes along with the why, another tip is to just cross it off for good, even if you didn't do it. Is there something on your to-do list that you have had on there for a really long time, too long of a time almost? Is there anything that you really don't have to do, you just think you do? Take a minute to see if you're procrastinating because you really don't need to do it, because it doesn't serve your overall goals. It may be something that you agreed to do for someone else that you could maybe delegate and give back to them, or just explain, hey, this isn't something that works for me right now. Most people are pretty understanding of stuff. It's okay, again, to say no to things to help your time management, because time management is going to help your stress levels, and then it's going to help your health, right? We have to think of ourselves. All right, next tip for procrastinators, use incentives. Rewards work. We don't doubt that, and you can use them to your advantage. To get yourself to get part of something completed, find something that's going to motivate you to do it. If you spend 30 minutes cleaning your closet today, then you get 15 minutes on social media tonight. 15 minutes extra, or whatever you want to do. If you get that work project done, then you and your coworker can head to the coffee shop and enjoy a fancy coffee drink, but not before. Get that done, right? If you do your workout program for 2 weeks, then you get to buy yourself that new workout top. Again, millions of options here. Be creative, find what motivates you. Again, rewards absolutely work. All right, last tip for our procrastinators, be compassionate with yourself. If you are a chronic procrastinator, let it go. Don't worry about what you've done in the past. Work on what you can do to move yourself forward and improve in the future. Like my quote here says, think about your future self, not your past self, and then make yourself proud. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. Just a quick summary here. Help manage your time and your stress by tracking, see what you can actually do, or what you're actually doing all day. Set realistic goals on how you can tweak your days to make yourself more efficient. Use any of these tips that made sense today to help you along the way. Time is something that's never going to stop, right? But we can find ways to use it to our advantage and take some of it back in our busy lives. Good luck, everybody. All right. Before we get to questions, just some of those upcoming webinars that we've got. February is on exercise, the best medicine that we can have. And then March, healthy gut, happy mind. We will talk about how gut health not only helps your physical health, but it can also affect how happy you are. Pretty cool stuff. All right. If your company has questions for the lifestyle rewards points, again, most of the companies do not at this time, but if your company does, these questions will be noted when you go to submit it on your My Health Check account. But here are those questions that you can answer. Again, if you want a PDF, so you've got these to when you log on, you can go to our blog post. That'll be up either this afternoon or tomorrow. And then here's that contact information. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. That's the blog, thehealthcheck360.com/blog. That's where you're going to find today's webinar recording. That's where you're going to find any of our past webinar recordings and lots of other good info, tips, all that good stuff. Instagram, and then again, you can always call us. You can always email us with specific questions or comments or anything like that. We'd love to chat with you all.